Hello, and welcome back to this episode of 5 Alarm Task Force. If you're listening to the audio, if you're watching us on our YouTube channel on video, welcome. We're happy to have you. I'm your host, Steve Green. Happy to be here with you and happy to have you with us. And I have a friend, again, I guess this is the 7th time in a row podcast, but that's the wonderful thing about social media and this podcast is I get to meet some great people from the fire service and affiliated services over these 5.5 years. And I'm so happy to bring back a friend, Steve Prziborowski. I finally was able to get the name right, and I'm even spelling it correctly. I even check myself every time I write it down, but I'm spelling it correctly now. Steve is recently retired as a deputy chief, right?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Santa
Clara County Fire
Santa Clara Fire Department in California. And if you folks are anywhere, if you're in the fire service and you don't know about CAL FIRE and what CAL FIRE takes up, truly CAL FIRE, which includes basically every fire department in California when needed, right?
Yes and no. CAL FIRE is actually, sorry to cut you off. CAL FIRE is the state agency
right,
that manages all basically the rural areas for fire protection. They have a few city contracts, but like our department, Santa Clara County Fire, we don't really have any formal relationship with them, short of a lot of our area around the San Francisco Bay Area is wildland urban interface.
Right.
So there are about 10 CAL FIRE stations in our county. We have one in our jurisdiction, so they'll respond jointly, and they're responsible for the wildland. We're responsible for the structures, but like if it's our jurisdiction, we're technically responsible. And so we're joined at the hip, but we're not really related per se, but definitely a very huge organization that is very necessary during summertime. Fire season, not just summertime, I mean year round.
Right, but yeah, last couple of years have been really brutal for the state. Yeah, and we've spoken to a couple of other firefighters from further south and one CAL FIRE firefighter, and it really is. I mean, it really is a joint effort of the great fire services that are in the state of California. And I visited, a lot of the houses in the greater LA area when I was there, and in San Francisco when we spent a week there shooting video with San Francisco Fire. And it really is a well-organized machine. If you want to you take the localities mixed together with the state agencies and whatever national is able to help in those cases. It's just amazing to see. And I think when everybody watches the national news and they see all the firefighters and they don't know the difference between the helmet colors or the bunker gear colors, they just see the men and women of the departments and the forestry and CAL FIRE, everybody just working together to do one thing, what we all love to do, save people and property.
Well, we have to rely on each other. And one of the things I think is very unique for California, not to mention all the wildfires that we tend to get, I know a lot of states, or more and more states, are getting the wildfires around the country, which is really crazy. But the one thing I think we're very fortunate to have is no one agency, even CAL FIRE itself, as big as they are, can't handle everything by themselves, nor can even the bigger city fire departments. So we really have a great, unique way of moving apparatus up and down the state and even out of state, and the ability to call resources from other states, 2, 3, 4 states away to come help us out when we're unable to support things. So, I know there's other states. I have friends in there going, how the heck does that happen? It's just, we're fortunate that we've been doing it for years. And it's just, you get on the phone and you request the resources, and maybe not be instantaneously, but there's a good network of being able to get mutual aid across jurisdictional lines in a reasonable fashion.
Yeah, I think for those of us who are, pardon me, but old enough to remember what was our impetus to really get us turned in towards the fire department, which was the show Emergency, Johnny and Roy.
Oh yeah, I'm with you.
As a matter of fact, I just read on social media that they are coming back to do some sort of a special limited series.
I can't wait for that.
Both guys, which is good because I know Randy had been ill for a while and he's doing much better, thank goodness. And Kevin has stayed in entertainment. You see him pop up in various movies on various channels and stuff like that. And it would be great to see them together. But they really were an impetus for thousands of us to, I was already in college when the show started, but just watching them and then seeing some of those scenes. Of course, they were very lucky insofar as the fact that Jack Webb and R.A. Senator worked directly with LA County and said, look, we want your stories.
Yeah.
We'll put in the TV part of it, but we want your stories of real fires and real emergencies. And they did an amazing job. And the big brush fires that you saw on, I think it was 2 or 3 of the episodes.
Yeah.
Really said what you just said. They picked up the phone, they made that call, and they had, departments from all area coming to help out to put these fires out. And as you said, there are other states we know, especially up in the central northern part of the country and the northwest part of the country, especially with this beetle kill problem. Going through the trees. Those trees are dry as tinder. It only takes a sneeze and you wind up with a large area fire. And yet the men and women of the states of this country, they just say, this is just another job we're going to, another alarm that the bells ring for. We're going to go in, we're going to do our job to the best of our ability.
I mean, in all reality, I can't speak for you, but I signed up to fight structure fires, to go in structure fires. Back in the early 90s, we really didn't have that much wildfire activity. I mean, we had it, but not to the extent today, for whatever reason. I still to this day will take a structure fire any given day, but it's also in California. A lot of times I hear some of the students that I teach at the college like, well, I don't really want to fight wildland fire. It's like, well, then move somewhere else that's not the West Coast, where there's more rain and, more humidity, more snow, or because unfortunately in the West Coast, all of us are wildland firefighters, whether we like it or not. And we used to say that even in our jurisdiction of our 15 firehouses, 13 of 15 basically butt up to some type of wildland urban interface, even in the flat areas around San Jose that we surround. And the other 2 stations that are in the flatlands, they have so much creek and marsh areas that they tend to burn a lot there too. So really no fire department in California is immune to it. So you gotta, good, bad, or indifferent, tolerate it and make the best of it.
Exactly. And I think most of us look at each call as a challenge. And we quickly, as we're donning our gear and jumping on the apparatus, we're going through our heads, okay, this is the type of call, this is what we've learned about it, this is what we're going to look towards and stuff like that. And then you have our officer who leads us, there until we get to the scene, and the IC takes over there, and we do our jobs. That's what we, as you said, whether we're a volunteer, part pay, career, WUI, that's what we signed on for, is to answer alarms to help our communities. And that's what it's all about. So let's talk a little bit about, with that said, because we covered really almost all 3 of the topics that I mentioned before we started, which is you recently retired. How many years did you have with the department?
Well, I'll say this. My last day in the office was July 23rd. Technically, December 30th is my official retirement date because I had about 5 months of retirement, 5 months of vacation leave, personal leave, and other various leaves built up. So that was nice. And that gets me almost to the full maximum benefit in our pension system. And literally at the end, I'm almost looking at my watch right now. This month marks 30 years in the fire service for me. I got my first official position, which was an explorer firefighter position with the City of Alameda Fire Department, December of 1991. And then here I was at that point looking and going, God, it's going to be forever to, get a full-time job and go through the ranks. Then next thing you know, 30 years later, it's like, oh crap, where did the time go? So yeah, 30 years in the fire service this year. And even though I'm technically going to be retired in a couple of weeks, by no means am I not going to not be involved. I just enjoy being involved in so many different capacities, whether it's teaching, helping others, coach others to get hired, to get promoted, or just to be the best they can be, regardless of the rank they're in or whatever their aspirations are. I mean, I just love that. Love being involved in that capacity. And I'm very fortunate to still be able to do that, whether it's speaking, writing, coaching, mentoring. So great career, but you know what? Time to enjoy some other fun things.
Exactly. And part of these built up accrued time that you had off allowed you to travel quite a bit over part of the summer and the early fall. And we watched you on social media bounce from stadium to stadium. ball game to ball game to concert to concert. You had a great time, but at the same time, you were visiting firehouses and just stopping in to say hello, as a lot of us like to do when we
Yep.
travel. And one of the things I should have mentioned is, besides just being a teacher, you are an author as well. And your most recent book was something leadership. I just fell out of my head, but
Actually, yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've written a lot of articles, Fire Engineering Magazine, Firehouse Magazine, all the major magazines, and I've published 4 books. 3 of them I self-published. 2 of them are entry-level firefighter preparation books, Reach for the Firefighter Badge and the Future Firefighters Preparation Guide. The third one is a promotional preparation book that I self-published, How to Excel at Fire Department Promotional Exams.
right.
What I'm most excited about is this last January, Fire Engineering Books and Videos has published my 4th book, 101 tips to ace your promotional examination.
Right.
And I signed a contract recently for a 5th book, this one also through Fire Engineering Books and Videos, on leadership, courage under fire leadership, which is a topic I'm so passionate about, sharing with others, as I'm fortunate to go around the country teaching at conferences, teaching at fire departments, and so forth. So promotional preparation and leadership has been pretty much my passions over the years. I'm very fortunate to write about them, speak about them, and yak to whoever wants to listen or get put to sleep.
Well, I think, the fact that you attain the level of deputy chief of Santa Clara County shows that you dedicate yourself to improve yourself and to study and learn more to get to the next level. We both know there are men and women who, hey, they'll put in their 25, 30 years as a firefighter, be the senior person in the house, and retire, and they're thrilled. They had a great career. They enjoyed themselves. They do that. Mm-hmm. And others have that passion. Say, wait, and I want to do more, or I feel the need to do more than just be like I was, a snot-nosed, belly crawling nozzle jockey. But I think you're a great example for younger firefighters to look at and say, look, if you set your goals and you follow the right path of participation, study, learning, and sharing, because I don't think learning is one way. I think learning has to be 2 ways. You have to learn, and then you share it, what you've learned, with others. If you don't, you're not fulfilling that basic instinct of learning. One of the things we always stress with the webinars and the other meetings that we do is that if you come, we want you to be there, and then we want you to go home and take that message to your department. Mm-hmm. We're talking now. Thursday night is our next webinar, talking about situational awareness, responding to emergencies on active roadways. And just overnight, Sunday night to yesterday, a California firefighter was critically injured when he was on the scene of an accident, rendering aid, and a third car came through and hit him. Yeah. Supposedly there was an update that he was doing a little bit better, which I was glad to see at the end of the day. But this is a scourge across the country, and this is not only it's killing and injuring firefighters, police officers, EMS people. It's our road rangers and our recovery operators. All of this, all 5 from that 5 numbered group, have been injured or killed by distracted drivers not paying attention. Yep. So when one of the things we've been putting in, as you said, with our social media posts about this, is come and learn from 4 of the best who know this topic, especially situational awareness. I mean, Dr. Rich Gasway is the person. Yep. For that. I was corresponding with him yesterday and told him I'm in the middle of listening to last week's podcast with a firefighter. I think he's from California, but he was in Socorro, New Mexico for he did the explosive school, and talking about, homemade bombs and how easy it is, and that as firefighters, we always have to be careful, and this is what we look for and things like that. And you got to take this. Mm-hmm. Yes, the bells go off and the adrenaline flows and you're ready to get on the rig and you have an MVC coming up, but you also got to realize that whether it's a country road or a 12-lane superhighway, you need to have your situational awareness, because you know, even the blocking vehicles, we know, unfortunately, all too often are hit themselves.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so we hope that people come and they'll learn from it and then share what they've learned with others in their department. So with that said, you use this time, accrued time, as you traveled, not just for self edification. You wanted to participate, and again, you started teaching as you traveled, and you got to enjoy the passion that you love of teaching in the fire service with other firefighters, and at the same time, you fed that little hunger, you know, personal hunger of traveling around the country. You went to, I don't know, how many ballparks did you hit?
Well, my wife and I have been to all 30 major league ballparks. And I now, she's happy just going once,
Yeah.
unless it's very unique, but I don't mind. I mean, that's why if I'm out teaching somewhere, that was the challenge when I was working. I would sometimes literally fly out late in the day, get somewhere literally go across country, teach the next day and fly back within a short time, never having a chance to enjoy the area. Now, at least I can, catch a ball game or catch a concert if it's in the area and actually spend a day or two. And thankfully, I have a very supportive wife that works in the fire service well, that allows me to do that and doesn't complain or anything else. But yeah, it's, whether it's sports or concerts or just seeing friends, it's just nice to be able to have that time to do that, because I think COVID really put a perspective.
Oh yeah.
In so many of us. I know there's a lot of people now, the statistics show that there's people are leaving jobs or quitting jobs because of COVID. That wasn't the reason that I retired. I mean, it was, a culmination of things that over the last year or so, when I looked at everything and the positives, and the pros and the cons, it's like, well, I enjoy working, and as long as I'm making a positive difference, I'll keep at it. But it's also time to pass the baton. And also 55 years old, I got more, as a friend of mine said, he goes, I got more years behind me than in front of me, realistically. Yes. So it's like, what, start living life. And it's like, what, not that I wasn't living life. It's just, I want to be able to just, I don't know, enjoy the simple things that I have been able to do, but maybe not as much as I have been in the past. And, I think that's the point of, what, treat every day like it's your last, even though I should have been doing that years ago. But
yeah, well, the fact is that you found that niche that was right for you, and that was what's the most important thing. And you've been able to combine your passions, which a lot of people can't do. You're one of the lucky ones. Following you since we first met online several years ago when the show was new. And I've just always been amazed by, even your posts are pearls of wisdom, basically. You always try to put in a post on social media, even if it's just a few words together, that teaches the reader something, that says something unique about who we are and what we do. And very few people are able to do that and weave that little piece into something else that you wouldn't connect with the fire service, but all of a sudden you're able to weave that. And I think probably as a writer, even though what you write is nonfiction, I think you're weaving the story of who we are and what we do and how to get there and how to do it. And I think that's so important, because as you and I both see on social media all the time, there's all these debates about what makes leadership.
Yeah.
And it has to be a chief officer has to find the right person to do that. And a person doesn't know in a couple of years if they want to be an officer or not. I don't get that. I think if you're in a job, any job, and you like the job you're doing, and you say, I enjoy this, I want to do the best I can at it, you're going to make those efforts to improve yourself.
Bingo. Well, I think that's been what's fortunate for me, is that I had a lot of great mentors when I was in that phase of wanting to become a firefighter. In the 4.5 years back in the 90s when I was testing to become a full-time firefighter, and I know there's some that say, it took you 4.5 years, what a loser. Well, I didn't give up. I kept on trying, and I know it's a lot easier, I think, now, because I think there's less competition in departments I think are struggling to get good candidates. I was fortunate to have a lot of great mentors, at Chabot College, where I still teach, within the fire technology program, and some family friends and people I'd met along the way, and good mentors that helped, inspire me and motivate me to get involved and do those things, and I'm just fortunate to tie those things in. So I appreciate your kind words about the posts. I try to balance things out. There's times I wish I had more time to post more things, but then on the opposite end, I also don't want to be the one that's just inundating people with spam or, oh my God, that dude again. So it's a balance. And sometimes it's like, God, does anyone even care about what I'm saying? Or, sometimes the message I have is not maybe the popular message, but sometimes what we need to hear and versus what we want to hear are two different things. And it's just my opinion, good, bad, or different, and take it or leave it. We're all
Exactly. And I think, one of my friends asked me, well, when you post, do you look at how many likes and stuff you get? I said, no. They said, how come? I said, because I'm not posting to be popular. I'm posting what I feel I need to post about.
Right.
And if people like it, they can hit the the heart button or whatever.
Yeah.
If they don't like it, they can go on to the next message. I can't speak to everybody.
No.
But I do the best I can, sharing the wisdom I gained, not only when I was active, but since I've remained connected to the fire service all these years. Do I miss it? Oh yeah. Even if at this age, if I could, if I was physically able to do it, I'd still be doing it. I just loved doing that job. It was just something, again, and I think you mentioned something very, very important. And I see you as in this role, especially as a mentor yourself. But mentoring is what we need so much more of in the fire service today. We have good friend, Battalion Chief Jacob Johnson, whose mantra is "Do your damn job." And people think, well, that means, well, I'm a firefighter, I'm doing my job. No, he says, being a firefighter is teaching somebody else something that you know.
Yeah,
that's what it's about in mentoring. And I was very lucky in the small volunteer, slightly combo department. We only had 5 paid people in the station, North Carolina. But one of the day guys, there were 3 guys worked 24 on, 48 off. Their job was to get the first apparatus out the door.
Yeah.
Once it was crewed. And one of them took me and my buddy under his wing, and he was there for us. Anytime we were there, he would make sure, even if he was on a day off, he said, "You guys going in at lunchtime?" We said, "Yeah." He goes, "All right, I'll meet you at the station at lunch." And he was there to teach us. And it made all the difference to the point where we wound up going to 3 state fire colleges, and we never knew why.
Yeah.
Never why he chose the 3 of us, the chief. And we didn't find out. I didn't find out till 2017 when I was back up in Greensboro, and my good friend, who was the mentor, Roger, said, "Have you seen the chief?" And I said, "Seen the chief?" I said, "I didn't know he was still around." And he says, "Oh yeah, he's in the same house across the street from my old house." So I went there the next day, and we sat down and talked. And one of the things he said was, "Mr. Green, I bet you wonder why I sent you to that state fire college with Richard and Roger." And I said, "Yes, sir. We talk about it anytime we're together." We said, "Why the hell were we picked?" He says, "Because I knew you boys were going to be officers. I saw what you had to offer in the department, and I knew I wanted you to be officers in the volunteer side of this department." Because, of course, I was pretty ticked off when Richard left early, and then you wound up moving to upstate New York.
Yeah.
He says, "But I understand the reasons, because my buddy went to become a cop in D.C., and my wife wanted to get close to her family and my family up. Her family was in Albany, so we moved up to Syracuse." But the fact was that it was those 4 years that really, because of that mentorship, that I was able to learn so much day in and day out, even as a volunteer.
Yeah.
And yet when I went to the station in the Syracuse area, even though, and I had those 3 certifications from the state of North Carolina, which was basic firemanship, hydraulics, and high-level rescue, I couldn't buy a lesson to drive one of the apparatus. By the way, I drove brand new Pierce engine with a 750 gallon tank.
Okay.
I learned to drive our Pierce snorkel, the 75-foot snorkel on it. Who was the tanker? I think it was an old Seagrave. I'm not sure, but an old tanker that had 2,000 gallons on, another tanker that had 2,500 gallons. So I knew how to drive apparatus, but the only thing I got permitted to drive was the Chevy Suburban. So
I'll start somewhere.
Yeah, and so I thought back about it. And I said, as a teacher, I said I had guys teaching me in Greensboro all the time. Not just Roger. There were the other day people, or the captain, if I was there and he was free at the moment, he'd say, "Hey, Steve, let's take a look at this on the truck," and we do it. But in Syracuse, it was every man for himself. That's it. There were the cliques, especially the guys who went after drill nights or business meeting nights, went right up to the little bar that was in walking distance of the firehouse, maybe less than a quarter of a mile from the firehouse. And they used to hang out there after the meetings. Unfortunately, the meetings were mostly on Friday nights, and I was working at a synagogue. And so it was very tough for me not to be in both places at the same time.
Yeah.
But one of the things that it brought me to do is when I saw new kids coming in to our department in Syracuse, I started to mentor them. I told them, look, I'm not an officer. I never applied for an officer, but this is what I've learned. And I shared it. Because that's just who I am. It's just part of me. And I think that if we can, with people like you still writing, still teaching, that hopefully we can cause that trickle effect that people who have been to your classes or read your books are saying to themselves, this is something that I'd like to give that kind of information to somebody, share with somebody else. Because, I know Bill's on that B shift, and we've talked about this kind of stuff before. Maybe I should sit with Bill and talk with Bill about, helping him out and seeing if he's interested in this. Because that's what we need today. As you said, you raised a very good point. It's getting more difficult to find qualified applicants for the job. And then from the qualified applicants, whittling that down to those who can pass all the tests and the physicals and come on board.
And are actually good people and not assholes, excuse my language.
No, that's a very good point.
That's so much of it, especially in a career department when you're working at a firehouse for 24, 48 hours or more. And I think the people skills are probably the biggest thing we're looking for in the fire service. We can train most people to throw a ladder, don an SCBA, pull a hose, but we can't teach you to be nice. Can't teach you not to be a jerk and all those other things. But it's very challenging to get those people in the door in the year 2021 when we're filming this right now. Not to mention now looking for people to step up to leadership ranks. I know a firefighter and engineer are not leadership ranks, but they definitely have leadership potential given the things that they're involved with on a daily basis.
Right.
Especially the leadership ranks. I think we as a nation are struggling in all walks of life, private industry, public government, public safety, to get good, solid people to step up, because it's a thankless position. Not so much maybe company officer, but especially the chief officer ranks in a lot of departments.
Right. Well, we know that, and we've talked about this with some of our other guests. So we recently had on Commissioner Jared Renshaw, and he talked about, how to answer the call when it's from City Hall.
Yeah.
Because he says, when you become a chief, the chief in his department, the commissioner, you're not necessarily dealing with the day-to-day running of the department. You're dealing with budgets, manpower, insurance, apparatus. You're dealing with a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Right. And once in a while, there'll be that one call where either you'll decide on your own to go, or the IC who's there, who's not a chief of department, says, Chief, it might not be a bad idea for you to come down here.
No problem. I'll be there momentarily.
Right. But I think that the fact, as you said, we still need those people who are willing to be battalion chiefs, and then assistant chiefs and deputy chiefs, and then eventually some of them to become chief of department or commissioner. Because listen, the fire service is never going to stop.
Oh no.
We are all major supporters of NFSA, the National Fire Sprinkler Association, and want them to succeed to absolutely at every turn. But
Yep.
yet we know that there are stumbling blocks to that, especially in the building industry. And there are good people in the building industry. I just don't think they realize that the little bit of money that adding a sprinkler to a new structure is absolutely worth the minimal investment in what it does to protect life and property.
Without a doubt. And I think really they just have different priorities than we do, no different than any other line of work. That's just the way it is.
Right, right. And so what we need to do is, and I've said this before on the show, is that every firefighter, whether you're an officer or not, has to understand that our PR is not just in the month of October.
Yeah.
Our public relations needs to take place every day. When you go to the market to pick up the food, the stuff, the grub for lunch and dinner for that shift, you should have some folders with you, promotional folders with you, Edith drills folders, have little red caps on the plastic red caps on the engine, because if you can meet a family or a parent with a child, and the child walks up to you and wonder because you're in uniform, says, "Are you a fireman or are you a fire lady?" And you have to take those 2 or 3 minutes, and those 2 or 3 minutes can seal the deal. And I remember I was very lucky back in 2001, literally just before 9/11, I had been tapped to produce a segment for the old Rosie O'Donnell show.
Oh, cool.
For Fire Prevention Week in October of 2001. And they contacted me because of my background in TV and video and producing our initial program, America's Heroes. And I wrote up they said, write up an outline, tell us what you'd like to do. And I said, okay. So I wrote up the outline, and the guy called me back. He says, "Hey, I showed the outline to Rosie and she really liked it." He says, I said, "Well, I'm going to Israel for a couple of weeks." He says, "That's fine. Just give me a call when you get back and we'll be all, we should be all set." I said, "Okay."
Yeah.
So we went to Israel, came back, and then I got a booking in Israel. I got tapped in Israel to produce a version of our show, to come back after the high holidays of 2001, come back and produce a version of our show for Israel, Israeli TV.
Yeah.
For Israeli Channel 10. So, and we had a deal, it wasn't in paper yet, but we had a deal with FDNY to do a show called The Probie, where we would follow a rookie from their first day at the academy through their entire first year.
Nice.
To their first posting.
Yeah.
All those lined up. And part of the reason why, so we come back from Israel, I call the guy, he says, "Everything's great. Rosie loves it. She's bringing it to," this was Thursday morning, the 5th.
Okay.
The 5th of September.
Mm-hmm.
She's having a meeting on Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock with the production staff, and she's presenting it for you to do it. That was Tuesday morning, September 9th. Yeah.
6th. Yeah.
So September 11th, I mean. So we went dark because of that, because we didn't want anyone to have the misthought that we were trying to do something on the graves of our brothers.
Right.
It was the right thing to do. So we worked on other plans that we could do. And a lot of it was educational in minds. And matter of fact, even the dramatic show that we created in 2015, we're still trying to sell, but at least get somebody to sell the pilot. Even though it's a dramatic series, it's based on a real fire department, a real municipal fire department in the United States. Their Office of Film and Television loves the idea. They loved it when we showed them the script, shared the script with them. The commissioner really liked it, said they were on board, and I'm hoping the current commissioner, he may have already seen it from the lady who's the director of the Office of Film and Television, but I sent him a copy of it a few weeks ago, Commissioner Teal, because he was on the show talking about the Wing Spread 7 conference. And every episode was going to have a 1-minute educational spot in it, because we wanted the show to be it wasn't going to be like the TV shows, fire shows on TV today. This was going to be a family-friendly show that shows what the real things that firefighters go through in their personal lives and their professional lives.
Yeah.
And have an educational element every single episode to teach families fire safety.
Okay.
Things like close before you doze.
Yeah.
Can't get any simpler than that. The smoke detect. But every segment was going to be every episode would have an educational segment, because the four of us believe we've all been doing it one way or another. We've all been teachers, although I've been a real educational teacher, but we've all been teaching, the four of us, and we decided that, well, if this is going to be our last hurrah, then we're going to make sure it's a great hurrah and make sure that people learn from it, not just get entertained by it and walk away.
Right.
And so, we still reach out every once in a while. We've given up the ghost about 98%. But there are still a couple of people reading the pilot, and we hope that, somebody will take an interest.
Nice.
But I think that all too often, I think the term education in the fire service is used that you have to go to this conference or to this meeting to learn this. You have to go to do this. You have to go to that, rather than encouraging personal growth to get that firefighter, even if they're not looking towards promotion, but to get that firefighter encouraged to learn a little bit more. Encourage them to say, hey, the next city over, they're having a ropes and knots class. It's free, and you can go if you want it. We just got to register you. What do you think about you and a couple of the other folks going over there and taking that class? I know we've done it here, but give you more practice. That's what we need to be doing, is encouraging more education from everybody, from every color hat that's worn, to say you got to continue to learn to be a firefighter.
Well, I think that's the real important thing, that a fire chief hired me a couple months ago, and before the class started, he reached out to me. He goes, so, what's the benefit of bringing you up for a couple of days of leadership training with all my company officers, all my chief officers? Basically, it was an interesting question, because he goes, how can I justify the value of that? And I go, in all honesty, I think it's hard to justify, because, and he wasn't trying to jam me up or anything else. He just had a good question. And I go, well, in all reality, I think it's great to have me or anybody, because we all have different messages to share. And I think there's lots of great people out there to learn things from and to bring into your organization. But again, having me or anybody else just there for 2 days, a week, a half day, doesn't mean much unless you move on from there. Meaning, my hope is that I inspire, provide some motivation, maybe share some different resources, encourage people, challenge people. But then when I leave, it's up to each person to hopefully realize that they're responsible for their destiny, whatever that destiny is. And another department I was working with last week, I was asking that question of what's the most important thing an officer can do, or, anybody in the leadership ranks. And, there's a lot of great answers, but like the fire chief actually jumped up. He made a comment like you did. He goes, sometimes, it's my job and all of our jobs as leaders to tap someone on the shoulder and kick them in the butt, basically, without leaving a bruise, of course, or, don't want to abuse anybody, but tap them on the shoulder to encourage or inspire them to, hey, you might want to, like you said, go to that rope class or something else. And maybe it's not for everybody, but every now and then, just being able to do that, because that is our job as leaders, regardless of a rank. And even if you're a firefighter with no aspiration of promoting, great, be the best darn firefighter you can be, but also, back to our friend Chief Jacob Johnson, do your damn job, because even a firefighter, say with 3 years on the job, has people probably below them of less seniority that, you're not the expert at 3 years, I hope. Well, I know you're not, and I know I'm not, or wasn't. I'm still learning new things. But share that 3 years of knowledge or those lessons learned from the senior firefighters and pass that stuff on, because we all have an obligation, regardless of rank, to continue sharing and inspiring others. And if you want to be that person that is 8 to 8 out the gate, and every department has those folks on a shift schedule that 8 to 8 out the gate, I'm gone for my 4 days off and checked out and everything else, that's fine. But when you're there, be engaged, be that person, do more than the bare minimum when at all possible. And if each of us did more than the bare minimum, it's amazing how positive and far we could go as an organization, as a team, as a group, whatever.
That's great. And like you said, we are a team. Whatever shift you're on, if you get called in off shift because of a call that needs you, you go in there. We're a team. We're a team. That's what we do, and we take care of each other. It's just that I wrote an article that Nick Higgins published in the Firehouse Tribune a couple of weeks ago about the word family.
Okay.
We banter it around quite a bit. But you know what? Here's what we'll do. I think we'll take a break here. We come back. I'll talk about that article, and we'll talk about something that you mentioned with Chief Jacob Johnson. That's very important as well, that he stresses. So folks, if you're watching the video, you're not going to see anything different. If you're listening to the audio, well, you know what's going to happen. We're going to pause here. There'll be a few messages from our advertisers and our public service announcements, and then we'll be right back with my guest, retired Deputy Chief Steve Prziborowski, right after these words. As always, please stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to this episode of 5 Alum Task Force. I'm your host, Steve Green, and my guest is a friend from several years. When he first came on the show, we've been in touch through emails and postings since, and that's recently retired Deputy Chief Steve Prziborowski from the Santa Clara Fire Department in Northern California. And he had these passions of Steve that I've learned and grown from myself just reading. He's taken, even though he officially retires in 23 more days, but he had built up leave time. And as we know, if you're in the fire service, especially if you're a career firefighter, it's leave time builds up, especially if you're gung-ho and it's there. So he used this for his own self-edification, to enjoy himself a little bit after all the years of 30 years in the fire service. But he's continued to teach and tutor and travel on his own and to teach. And he shares his passion of learning and teaching. And just before, in the first section, just before our break, we're talking about mentoring. And we brought up our good friend, Jacob Johnson, and his mantra is do your damn job. And that job, that, as we mentioned, has nothing to do with picking up the axe or knowing the tools. His job is, if you've got time in that department, it's your time to start passing that knowledge on to somebody below you with less time. And as Steve just said before the break, he says, you may only be in there 3 years and you're not the senior person in the house, but there's a rookie who just came in, and you have 3 years more than that rookie does. So you've learned things that rookie doesn't know. And it could be the way you do those things in your house. He or she could have come out of the academy, followed the academy standards, done everything, did a great job, graduates, boom, they come to you. But your department may do different things. You might use a different type of knot depending what you're lifting. You may do something else different, and you need to share that. And you don't have to say to yourself, well, I'm not a teacher, I don't know how to teach. No one's asking you to stand up in the front of a classroom. We're just telling you, hey, Kathy, come over here. I want to show you something from this engine. I want to show you something that we do here. I don't know if other departments do, but we do it and it works well for us. That's sharing. And at the same time, you're teaching. And that's what Jacob's message is all about, and Steve's message is all about, is that you don't have to have degrees other than 98.6. You don't have to have a certificate other than you've made basic firefighter. All you have to do is have the heart to say, I want to share some of what I've learned with somebody else. That's all it takes. And you can be a mentor. No one's asking you to go cap and gown. Just sit down with somebody at the kitchen table and say, let me tell you about how when we come in and we're setting 3 apparatus, we're setting 2 engines and a ladder, and how we're going to hit the hydrant, depending on what side of the street. Let me go over that ops with you. That's it. you sit at a table with a pencil and paper and you just show them. You draw. You don't have to be Van Gogh to draw that on a piece of paper. Just take it into your heart and say, I want to share what I've learned with this new person, because they may be on my crew. They may be on my apparatus. I want them to know how we operate. And I can't have them necessarily try to teach them on the scene, but I can teach them when we have time here in the firehouse. And that's what Steve and Jacob's message are just that, about there's always time to learn if you want to make it. And there's always time to share, again, if you want to make it.
Hallelujah, brother. So true, so true. Excuse me. So true, so true.
So, as you mentioned, you have a new book. You've been signed for a new book coming out. Have you decided what it's going to be about yet, or?
Yes, Courage Under Fire Leadership. So my passion has always been promotional preparation, entry-level preparation, officer development, leadership development. So this book is actually Courage Under Fire Leadership. So it's actually already written. It's just going through all the back end phases of trying to do the editing and all the final finishing touches to it. So it probably won't be out until sometime, I'm hoping, in 2022, but it's already written. I've also got a couple other Courage Under Fire leadership books that I'm hoping to have published, whether it's myself, fire engineering, or somebody else after this one gets out next year. But just a collection of stuff and thoughts, best practices, and ideas. I'm not the guy from San Jose, California, or Santa Clara County Fire telling you what to do. I'm just here to provide some best practices, and whatever sticks, sticks, and whatever doesn't stick, doesn't stick. But, I'm with you in the sense that, I think there's a lot of value to formal education, to training, to education, to all those things, certifications. I'm not against any of that stuff, but I think, like you said, mentoring is probably doesn't cost anything short of time and energy and desire. And that's something we can all be doing and learning from each other. So I think those are the passions that I try to share, whether it's writing, speaking, one-on-one conversations, group conversations, whatever else. So, if we all did our part, it's amazing how better we could all be. And it's not about us. It's about those we're fortunate to lead and serve.
Exactly. And a lot of the people today, and I even talked with one last week, but you and I grew up in the fire service knowing probably one of the greatest leaders that the American Fire Service had. And that was Chief Brunacini.
Yep.
And I remember when, and I've said this before, but it's important to share again, when Chief Rubin, who was one of my first guests, offered to bring Chief Brunacini on the show. And I said to him, well, I can't talk to him. He says, what's the matter? You don't like him? I said, no, he's Chief Bruno. I was reading his articles when Firehouse first started. Every month I would read every word that he said, because everything applied to being a firefighter. Yeah. And he said, no, he's just another guy. I said, oh, I don't know if I can make this call. He goes, I'll tell you what. He goes, you call me first. I'll call Chief Bruno and I'll bring him on. And I said, and then he'll say hello and you just say hello. I said, oh, okay, I'll try. And this was within probably the first 6 months of the podcast.
Yeah.
And he brought him, I called Chief Rubin and he says, okay, hold on, Steve. And brought on Chief Brunacini. And he said, Chief, I want you to meet a friend of mine, Steve Green, 5-Alarm Task Force. And we're here to talk with him about the Wing Spread 6 conference. Yeah. And Chief Bruno said to me, he goes, hey, Steve, how are they hanging? and of course, I just broke up in laughter, on air. And Chief Rubin said, I told you, it's just like the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful experience. I had a chance to meet him briefly at a Firehouse conference in Maryland back in 2000.
Yeah.
When when Emergency, the TV series, was making their tour. They were taking the Squad 51. They were bringing it around the country.
Right.
They had come to Hyattsville, Maryland.
I remember that tour.
Yeah. So we had been at Baltimore for the Firehouse conference. I met Chief Bruno there, and then we went to the next day. Went to Hyattsville and met the actors from the show. Mm-hmm. But he was just so humble when I met him and shook hands with him at Firehouse. And I said, I've been learning from you from my first day in the fire service. And he says, are you still a firefighter? I said, no, an injury knocked me out after 8 years. He
Uh-huh.
goes, I bet you it's in your heart. And I said, yes, sir. He says,
Uh-huh.
that's why you're here today.
Yep.
And he came on the show and we talked, and it was great. And I think that I know we encourage people to read his articles and stuff, and I think that they're putting the library together for him. Matter of fact, I'm looking forward. I'm working on a podcast coming up with Chief John Vance and
Uh-huh.
Nick Brunacini,
Yeah.
along with Chief Don Abbott, to talk
Nice.
about Maydays and Blue Card.
Yeah. Good. 3 good dudes.
Yeah, I think it was a great combination. I offered to both of them. I said I'd like to have both of you on here, and the reason I that came to me to do this was because recently in my hometown here, of course, Boston will always be my hometown, but here we are in South Florida. It's a great department, ISO 1 department. Came from a volunteer in the last 20 years. I mean, they went from all volunteer to paid EMS and then a full paid department, and they did great coming up to ISO 1. And they have one station right down the street. The guys know me. I'm flying the firefighter flag. And yet in a week, we had 2 Mayday calls.
Wow.
Which is, I couldn't even tell you the last one I had even heard from this department. I listen to them most of the time, especially anytime if this engine peels out of here with the cue, and that's because our dog loves the cue and starts singing to the cue. But if they peel out with the cue running on our street, we know that there's something they got to get to.
Yeah.
So I'll turn on the scanner. And I was really concerned about how did it happen in a week that 2 Maydays were called in this department, because they're so good at what they do.
Right.
So I decided I wanted to go back into the Mayday genre again, and I couldn't think of any better people than Chief Abbott with the Mayday Project and Chief Vance and Nick Brunacini with the B shifters. And we'll probably do that after the first of the year.
Nice.
And do that. And then I also went a little crazy and invited Jacob Johnson to come on with Sean Duffy and Nick Peppard and Canman Jason Leska.
All good dudes and friends. I'm very right. Call them brothers and friends. So
right.
Good dudes.
They've all been on the show. Nick and Sean were great when they came to me. They want to start the Make Do podcast for the Suburban Focus, and I said, okay, let's do it here. I got them started here. We did 1 episode a month for a couple of months, and then they took it on their own, and I'm so proud of them. And it's great. And we're doing one because they've all been together already.
Yeah.
They've met each other, but they found a type bond, a type group that they belong in. And there's so much wisdom in that group, because I met Nick and Sean at the last Great Florida Fire School. Matter of fact, Nick was kind enough to invite me to teach my class, which Joe DeVito forced me to do. Joe forced me to do it in 2000. I was going back for the 2018 school, and he said, "You ready to come back and do the pictures and video?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, okay, I want you to teach this year." And I said, "Excuse me?" He says, "I want you to teach this year." And I said, "Joe, I haven't taught in front of a crowd in 30 years, let alone I've never taught a fire class." He says, "You are passionate about certain topics in the fire service. And I know that you can do the research and teach those." So that was the birth of the elephant in the firehouse, when ego gets in the way of passion.
Yep. Bingo.
So I did it that year. Unfortunately, it was a little bit too much death by PowerPoint that first year. So the second year, I kind of calmed down the PowerPoint to only four slides and 1 video, and then the rest I spoke, extemporaneously, and it was much better. And Nick and Sean were in the class, and they came up to me after lunch that day, and they said, "Hey, Nick said, I'm running the first North Florida Fire and EMS school. I'd like you to come up and teach the class up there." And I say, "Are you crazy?" He says, No. I'd love for you to do it. Unfortunately, the device in my back that helps me out it was kind of just after the beta model.
Right.
And it we didn't know it then, but it went dead. So I was going through some real bad back things then, and the doctor wouldn't allow me. It was a 10-hour drive from here up to the Panhandle, and I was going to break it up in 5 hours because I have my buddy from North Carolina is a chief pilot in Alachua County.
Okay.
So I was going to stay with him overnight on the way up and then on the way back. So I break up the trip to 5 hours each, but the doctor didn't want me driving that long. But, it was the fact that I think what hit me strongest was that when I finished that class that second time, I was sitting out at the main desk.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, you have to sign these certificates. I said, what certificates? For the class you taught. I said, I can't sign them. I said, why not? I said, you taught it. I said, but I got no credentials to teach from. They said, oh no, yes you do. I said, I don't have any credentials. He goes, now you do. See that lady over there? She's making your application for the Florida State Fire Instructors application.
Oh, that's great.
So next thing I know is 6 weeks later, I get a thing that I'm a Florida fire instructor and I can teach any course except for a course required in promotional exams.
Congratulations. There you go. Boom.
So, yeah. And then, of course, then COVID came started in February. And so I was, there was nothing to go teach with. We hadn't discovered Zoom yet.
Yeah.
But, I still have it. I have my folder right on my desk to my left.
Nice.
And I look forward to being well enough to go and teach that course again, because it covers firefighter. It's what really the podcast is about: firefighter health, wellness, fitness for duty, which is a big stickler for me.
Bingo.
And the cancer and behavioral health initiatives. And fitness for duty for me is so important because all too often, and I'm not looking to castigate anybody, but I know what I went through. I was overweight as a firefighter when I started. And nobody told me I was overweight. Nobody said you're too fat. Everybody just said, just be here and do your best.
Yeah.
Well, I felt that to do my best, I had to lose some weight. So I dropped 17 pounds then.
Good for you.
And I felt better and I was able to do it. But today, again, it's part of who's willing to come in, apply to the fire service, be a part of it.
Yep.
But I think that we also have people who just think that, well, I've been in 10 years already, so I'm fine. But you're not fine if you're not fit for duty. And maybe 10 years ago, you were able to get that SCBA on and mask up and the hood and everything like that in 30 seconds. And of course, your SCBA is made out of fiberglass composite. Mine was all steel and the frame was steel.
Yeah.
So, there was 45 pounds right there just to lift out of the suitcase. When I started, we were still carrying the Scott packs in the suitcase. But it's so,
those days too.
You remember them a little bit. Yeah. So it's just so important that part of what we're teaching is caring about yourself.
Oh yeah.
As a firefighter, not, how many alarms did you get or how many saves, but doing the job. Are you physically fit to do the job? And that's,
and that's that balancing part is the job has never been more challenging, I think, with all the different expectations, whether it's the fitness related, mental related, public expectations and everything else. Yeah, we still have an obligation to get our butts in those burning buildings and get an aggressive search, get water on the fire. But we also have the balancing act of trying to do a better job at fitness. Like I said, whether it's physical fitness, mental fitness. I mean, you throw a pandemic in there, don't ask me how, knock on wood. I've been fortunate to not have any major issues that I'm aware of, but there's a lot of people in this world that do, especially in the fire service, public safety, law enforcement, EMS. And I think that's what it comes down to is one of the things you mentioned before break was, we throw the term family and brotherhood around, but we can do a better job at it. True brothers and sisters look out for each other, don't enable each other. But I know that's that challenging part of enabling versus, well, I'm just going to not say anything or do anything because I don't want them to get mad at me or I don't want them to get them in trouble. Well, sometimes you have to have tough love because the ultimate goal should be when our time is up, whether we're volunteer, career, combination, whatever type of department, when our time is up in the sense of in the fire service physically, and it's time to go on to the next phase, whether that's retirement, another position, another job somewhere else. Hopefully the job hasn't killed us. I mean, hopefully we've done everything we can do, because when we take that oath of office, it means we'll risk our lives to save other lives. That's what we signed up to do. It also means that we'll look out for our brothers and sisters, but also look out for those in the community that we signed up for serving. And I think it's never been a more challenging time for us to really look out for each other, and sometimes not reimagine, revisit why we took that oath of office. Because I've heard some people in today's world, especially with the pandemic, I know it's very crazy times that we're all dealing with. You know, I've heard people say, well, I don't want to go inside that burning building because I may get cancer. Well, that's why you have SCBA. That's why you have training. Yeah, you may get cancer, but there's a reason you're a firefighter. You're going to go in those burning buildings to risk your lives to save others, like you would expect your local fire department to. Or I don't want to go on that EMS call because I may get COVID and bring it home to my family. Well, yeah, you may, but again, you have PPE. If it's PPE that's necessary for the patient, then you need to address that. You need to maybe take better precautions, and you need to do what's best for the patient, best for the customers, and obviously best for your personnel. So, you know, I couldn't imagine being a new leader starting out in today's fire service. Not to say it's not impossible, but with all the different challenges and influences and, you know, distractions, I guess it's not an easy time to be a leader, but I commend those that step up.
Right. You know, that's one of the things that Jacob says is that, you know, put down your phones, put down your iPads, and be a part. You know, if you're in the day room, go sit at the table. And talk. Don't, you know, get away from the electronics and stuff. And we'll close with this concept of family. And what I wrote was that if we're going to use the word family, you know, we're all firefighters. We're family, no matter where we go. And that part is true. You've seen that. You've traveled. I've traveled. I've knocked on the door, showed my badge. Oh, come on in and let's talk. And, you know, tell us about. But we can't just banter the word. If we want to use the word family, we have to live by that word. Yes, it's true. In our own families, we have disagreements. Sometimes there are arguments, and sometimes they're big blow-ups. But eventually, for the most part, we come together as a cohesive unit, as a family, when we get past it. We have to do the same thing in the fire service. If we're going to use that word family and brother and sister, we have to live by those words. We have to treat each other like family. Well, I got away from that. That's why I came to the firehouse. So I wouldn't, well, you know what? If you're going to walk, whether you work in a 12, 24, 48 shift, makes no difference. You're still going to be with these people. They're part of your crew. These are the people you're going to respond on every call with, basically. If you're going to use the word family, make it like a family. You can have disagreements. You can have different political positions. You can have different economic visions. But the fact is that for the job, we have to be one. We have to be a family. And we also, you know, as we say, we like to take care of each other. Do we really? Are we really there when a brother or sister needs us? Or are we there like one day and say, hi, just wanted to check, make sure you're okay, and then we walk away? Do we follow up with an email? Do we follow up with a phone call? Do we come back to visit them again? Hey, I just want to check on you. That's all part of who we're supposed to be in each of our communities. That's who they look at us to be. The people we save strangers. We go in and save strangers and help them when we don't even help one of the fellow members of our crew. How do you justify that? How do you justify going out and helping a stranger when you're not supporting or helping, offering some sort of assistance to a member of your crew who's having a tough time, or your department? That's what family is about. And I think that's a lot of what you're sharing in your teaching, is that we are one group. We may have different ranks. We may be of different ethnicities and creeds. That doesn't make any difference. We all take that same oath. Protect lives and property in our community. And that means each other. That means the people in our community. And first and foremost, it means we take care of ourselves.
Amen, brother. Amen.
So, Steve, I can't thank you enough. I know that even though you happen to be home now, you're still busy and things are still turning for you there. And I'm so glad you were able to find some time and get to have you back on the show. It's been quite a while, but I'm glad we've stayed in touch over the years, and we're able to bring you back for this episode.
The feeling is mutual, brother. Honored and privileged and humbled to be a part of this conversation. I know it's been a long time since we had the last one, so thanks for reaching out. Glad we can make time, always make time for you. And thank you in advance to anybody that's listening. And feel free to reach out to me. My website's code3firetraining.com, and my contact information is on there. Obviously, you can GTS, Google that stuff and get a hold of me. But I'm a resource for anybody that wants to reach out. Hopefully our paths will get a chance to cross. Not you and I, Steve, but everyone that wants to meet at some point, paths will cross at some point. But I don't have all the answers, but I'm more than happy to have a conversation or have a beverage or just beverage or whatever. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Folks, if you're watching the video, that will be the end of the program. If you're listening to the audio portion of the podcast, there'll be more coming up after these words. But to my friend, Steve Prziborowski, thank you so very much for spending time with us today. And folks, we will be back probably after the holidays. We may be on next week. Still working on that one. If not, though, we'll be back after the first of the year. So if we're not back, to all of you, we wish you a very joyous, safe, and healthy holiday season to all. Take care, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.